So I want to say thanks to these writers of this book. I'm also thankful to our theological background as Lutherans. And I want to share with you at least a few of those tools that I've been using to be able to argue about being detectives of divinity. First of all, that what I'm talking about, it is really a God thing. This is about God who is involved in the lives of people. God has taken the initiative to be with us, is madly in love with this world, and redeeming it and trying to reconcile creation and creatures back to God. And so really the first church, in a sense, is a Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I mean, it's a community that is in mission, and each, unique, in a dynamic relationship. That's what you call the social trinity, but also very much focused outward, just ascending trinity. That is, everything we do as a people of God is because there's this impulse, there's this inertia, there's this propeller that is moving us out. So a lot of the pictures that I find in churches when Jesus is knocking on the door of a church, it's not that he's trying to get in, he's trying to get us out, to be able to see the world and to appreciate the work that God is about around us in our community. So it's very important for us to understand that we're not talking about just individual things, but also communal things. And so God, in all its expressions, is a community, very diverse. And so diversity is never a curse. Diversity is a blessing. It's a gift. So the unity in mission, creativity, God is still creating today. If anyone is in Christ, there is a new creation today. And so the creation is ongoing. And so why should a church stop ministry as if everything is just for us? You can't. It's a constant movement of God in creation. A second thing is that, God is at work 24/7. And what's unique about our Lutheran understanding of the work of God is that God works, as Luther said, the right hand of God and the left hand of God, saying that God is at work in and through the church. You say, yeah, I know that. But also in and through society. So God's mission is way everywhere. The Spirit is blowing at will, creating the mission thrust of God everywhere, blowing at will. So I can guarantee you that there are thousands and thousands of people around us who are doing God's work, but they don't know about it yet. And God is at work right there and in and through them. So what an opportunity for us to actually find activity of God right in front of us that we have maybe not paying attention before. So an opportunity before us is there. Another thing I remember way back in seminary, my teachers and talking about this sacramental view of reality. That is, we know the sacraments of word and sacraments, the baptism and Holy Communion are sacraments. But when you really think about it, there are so many ways in which the means by which God makes known to us. So a hug, a good meal, of sharing, hospitality, so many ways in which you can see God in action and God showing you and I God's love, God's grace, hope, forgiveness, reconciliation, harmony, respect, dignity, and so many ways in which God is really telling us, I'm here. And, I'm going to make it clear to you. Here, someone's coming and offers you a word of thanks or something. Those are very simple but powerful ways that God is always using means to be with us and to show us God's love and God's grace. So that's another very important thing. And so as we also learn as people of God that in baptism we are free from sin and death and the evil one, and we are free to love the neighbor. So we live in and through the neighbor is part of our theology. So for me, these are like tools to help us, as we kind of put together our own journey as disciples of Jesus Christ, keep an eye on some of these tenets of our Lutheran understanding of God's work in the world. And the other one is that, God incarnated in Jesus, so God is used to the mess of humanity. So suffering, issues that we face every day, they're not foreign to God. But on the contrary, it is in and through them, because of our theology of the cross, that God, even in the middle of suffering, is right there with us, holding our hands, walking with us, suffering with us, hurting with us, loving us. And so it's really important to understand that this divinity or the issues of God, they're not some type of cloud out there that we need to ascend to, but rather actually go deeper into humanity, and God is precisely right there, ready to teach us, ready to embrace us, ready to use us as conduits of God's love and care everywhere we are. Another one is, the Lord's Prayer. Martin Luther, when in a small catechism, says, why is it that we pray, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, and thy will be done on earth, just as it is in heaven. Wow. Now so why do we do that? Because he said, really, in the end, as people of God, as humans, we yearn to get a little glimpse of what it's like to be this, people who are surrounded by this loving grace of God, embracing of God, and, what would heaven be like? Can we take a little peek at it? And so that's what our longings are that way. So Luther was very clear saying, that should be a prayed with gusto. Lord, I want to see a little bit more. Show us, and that. So, and then last but not least is the releasing of the gifts that the Spirit gives to all people. And so we wear many hats. I am a husband, I'm a father, I'm a grandpa, I'm a pastor, I'm a soccer coach, and all that. Those are many hats that I wear, and you have many too. Those are like entry points, vocations, the things, things that we're called to be able to exercise our life. So God is saying all those hats that you wear are windows of opportunity to be ministers on behalf of God with the people that are around us. And right now, I tell you, I'm so thrilled to be a grandpa. My goodness, that's a whole new ballgame for me. So, many of you already know this, that one of the beautiful things about having a grandchild, the grandchildren, they strengthen your heart, but they soften your wallet, right? So who cares? Who cares? I can't take it with me anyway. So anyway, that's it. All right, so we move on now, thanks to that book and the theology. So this is where I want you to take a look in the screen. The mission of God is everywhere. It is not limited to the walls of the church or to the things that we're used to and comfortable with. In fact, God is at work among many people, in the middle of institutions and through institutions in society, associations, public spaces, everywhere. God is everywhere. And so that's why the opportunity for us to mingle, the opportunity for us to hang out there, the opportunity to kind of go on an adventure to see what is God about around us, where we are. So we're being invited, in a sense, to have more curiosity rather than judgment, to put our antennas up, lenses, to see what is God doing around us. So what in the world is God doing? Is there any way I might be being called to participate? What are other churches doing, other organizations? So it's a new pair of lenses to see God in action way beyond our comfort zones. And here's a way for us to enter into this world of God activity and to see and discover or rediscover, affirm or be reaffirmed on the way in which you and I can be utilized in the world, in society, in our communities, in our social networks, to be able to be useful vessels for God in those places. So God is banking on us. It's actually risking all of ministry in you and me, fragile human people, but that's precisely how God has designed it. So there'll be no angels flying around, doing things. It's you and me. And so what an opportunity then to be given that wonderful experience, to be able to see God in action and then tell somebody else about it. So I would like for you to practice a little bit in your table, maybe across two groups of two, and then you are already a detective of divinity. So, where have you been seeing God in action these days? Let me put it this way, right here. Where have you been noticing? Have you noticed God in action beyond the normal places you frequent, or where have you seen God in action lately? In your life, in your family, your church, in the community, where have you seen God in action lately? So let's practice that. Detectives, share with one another what you have found lately. Go, you got a few minutes. All right. Thank you very much. For many of you, you're saying, oh, that's a no-brainer, Ruben. Of course, that's easy. But actually, let's not take that for granted. It's amazing how many folks in our church go through the motions of church and miss an opportunity to really taste and see the goodness of God and how real God is. And so many of the studies that have been done in churches throughout many denominations, it's amazing how, to the extent that a church feels the reality of God here present and the people, it goes connected to the depth of spirituality and understanding of that. So if you can imagine a whole church, a congregation that can see itself as a bunch of detectives who are every day, whatever they're doing, they're gaining insight and understanding of how God is at work, whatever you are and whatever you do, then it's not just, oh, let's see what the preacher has to say on Sunday, but rather, I can't wait to go and be with others. Actually, during the coffee hour, I'm going to tell somebody what I experienced last week. And then the preacher, the teachers are going to give us this insight, and I can't wait to get out of here to be able to also be useful wherever I go, whatever God puts me in. That way of understanding our relationship with God is huge, because then it keeps you right on the edge of your seat with a constant discovery or rediscovery of how God operates, how the Spirit is moving, and then your life, not only grows in your understanding of who God is, but also who you are, because of who God is and what God is about in the world. So the sense of being useful, to be in God's hands, that is an amazing discovery that is an ongoing. So it doesn't matter where you are today, you can start immediately and begin to behave yourself into being this detective of divinity. And so studies have shown, and I put one on the screen, that we study this New Start for the last 10 years. And we're noticing which ministries, which congregations have the greater capacity and opportunity to be able to be useful vessels in their area, in their community. And we discover over 10 years that when a congregation is deeply rooted and connected and is constantly learning from its immediate surroundings and communities, that congregation has a better opportunity and capacity to be always on the bubble, to be always on the edge of something new, discover and new frontiers of what God can do with this wonderful group of disciples. And the second thing is that ministries, New Start, congregations that are able over time to find partners, to build alliances in community, so that we're not the only one, we're others around us together, moving together in community. Those congregations have a greater capacity to be able to extend the ministry of 10, 100, or 800 into thousands beyond, because of the networks, because of the connections that we are. So those two things are huge. Folks, it took us 10 years to learn that. So I just saved you 10 years of ministry here. So I hope you can make new mistakes, not the old mistakes, because one of the mistakes that we have in the ELCA is that we are growingly disconnected from our own communities. And you can see it everywhere. And I have the privilege of being those eyes on behalf of many people to see how we are about 60% of the ELCA. That's almost 6,000 churches that are growingly disconnected from their community. So really, it's only a matter of time, and those congregations won't be able to continue that important work that they have to do. And a lot happens when, because of our friends are so close to us in the congregation, then it's very hard for new people to join the group. It's so intimate. And so most churches say, we're the friendliest church, which is probably true for the people who are already there, but for new people. So that's why sometimes we need to remind one another that, where are the places that we can begin to open a few windows and begin to kind of have porous, walls in the church so that we have a little more connection and more connection and more connections in the community. So that's huge. It's very important. And as a church, we are, trying to convey as clearly as possible about this sense of stepping out to be able to build new relationships in the communities where we are. So I would like to share with you 5 ways that you can be a better detective of divinity, and then a couple stories of things that are happening because of that, not too far from here. And that's kind of where I'd like to conclude tonight. The first thing is I want to explain to you. I would like for you to consider having a helicopter view through demographics, a street view from building relationship with people, checking the capacity of our community, looking for assets and gifts around us, analysis of power and the dynamics of power in communities, and then also what are some alliances that could be built to be able to expand and strengthen the network that we already have here in the congregation. So, and I'm speaking to Trinity, but I know there might be other people from other places. So that's what I want to make sure that we get it as a group, a collective of congregations here in this part of the country. So the first thing is a helicopter view. And many of you say, that's not my thing. But for some people, it is. And some people want to analyze. They want to see in pictures. They want to see numbers. They want to see what's really going on in the community. And so we have both in the ELCA, service for census information, but also you have the services of Mission Insight, which is an entity that also goes very deep and very professional in the way in which they study the turns and the dynamics of a particular community. So it's amazing the things that we can learn from that. For example, we've been working in the city of Omaha, Nebraska. And if you look carefully to the screen, you'll see on the lower right side that the purple color shows you in this particular area of town, which would be west of the airport. You can see a little corner of the airport, and just a little north of downtown Omaha. You can see that about somewhere between 60% and beyond of the people who live in this particular area are of African descent background. So we are planting a new church. It's called Fontanelle Community Church. And so you see the location of that. If the whole area is purple and we're starting a congregation there, do you think we're in a good place? I would say so. It's right in the middle of the whole, right? So those are the things we can learn about it. But look, in just a few years, you see the little turquoise on the north and on the south. If you just project that, then all of a sudden you see, in about 5 years, we're going to get a bunch of newcomers from the north and from the south. So this is the things that we can learn and then prepare for that. So what does that mean? The younger generation, maybe the regentrification, young people coming to work in Omaha and they find cheaper housing here. I mean, all kinds of things that we can learn and be detectives of what's going on out there and how can we prepare ourselves to be more effective in the work that we do. So if you look at another picture, would be a median age. The turquoise is from 30 to 37 years old. That is the median. The half of the population is over 37, half of the population is under 30. And then the other part would be 26 to 30 years old. So a very young population and tremendous potential in this area for the ELCA. And so, but I know that if I were to be the pastor of that church, I know I need to be kind of zeroing on the African descent community. But in a few years, there's a whole new group of young adults coming of a variety of ethnic communities. So I need to be alert for that And so this is what could be helpful in understanding changes in a community. We also can get the more written things. You can say that 10% or 15% are Latinos moving in the area, and the rest is primarily African American, 20% Caucasian, and so on. And you can see the projection over the years. So the same thing is available to you, and I know Pastor Richard, Jennifer, and others in the Synod are available with resources like this if that is of your interest as you look into the future. So one of the things I learned by using demographics in the ELCA, I found out, my friends, that there are 2,000 ELCA congregations right now that are surrounded by 30% or more African Americans in the neighborhood, in the zip code. There are 1,400 ELCA congregations surrounded by Latinos. There are about 900 churches surrounded by Asian communities, and about 400 ELCA who are either within the reservation or next to the American Indian reservations. If you put it all together, that's about half of the ELCA could be multicultural tomorrow if we want to. And this is very important because the country is moving in that direction. So here we have an opportunity to exercise our gifts, our sense of hospitality, and ways in which, with creativity, that we can begin to make some inroads in welcoming new disciples for Jesus Christ from all over the world who are already here. So those are the things that I just wanted to show you a little bit about, detecting the activity of God, or what God is wanting to do, and then how we can participate on that. A second has to do with the street view. That is, now we're on our feet, on the ground, and nothing beats the walking the streets, the mingling with people, whatever is going on, whether it's something going in the park, something's a parade, anything going in the community that we can somehow mingle, kind of get in there and begin to get a feeling for what's going on, and also, more important, beginning to build relationships. And so it's amazing what people are willing to share with us if we can just take the time and just befriend a little bit. You see somebody in the park and you see, a grandma, hugging a child, and don't be surprised if you just kind of, hey, I just saw you, wow, I see a lot of love here. And then take your time, because that person might want to say, oh, but you have no idea. We almost lost this child at birth. And my love is double because of that. I say, wow, so you'd better listen to that, because that's a good opportunity and a new relationship that could take place in that. So in order to equip us to do that, one of the things that we are promoting a lot is this one-on-one conversations, and materials are available to you, this church, through our colleagues from the Synod office. We'd be happy to pass on so you can practice a little bit. But what we're talking about is to be intentional in conversation. It's not a survey. It's more just trying to gain another friend and to listen carefully with interest and with curiosity to hear the story that is right in front of you. And then by hearing that, then you get a chance to also open up a little bit of your own. And you never know where those conversations could lead. We're not selling anything. We're not trying to create and win an argument. That's not evangelism. We're actually curious people. We're trying to figure out, what's your life like, and what brought you here? What keeps you here? What's your dream for this community? What are you working these days? What is your hobby? What do you like to do? And how can I accompany you? I'll do it with you. Can I help? And you never know. And then you are the experts in building relationships. And I think the intentionality of it is what I'm talking about as far as detecting, opportunities in which we can be vessels in God's hands to serve people. So learning those one-on-one conversations, trying to get underneath, the skin. What are the values of this person? What seems to be important for this person? What makes this person unique? And in what ways my life could be also a blessing or something I can share as well. So it's both kind of, exchanging experience, exchanging interests, and see where we can make some connections, all that. Sometimes, you learn something about a person, and then you have a friend who have very similar interests, Maybe you're the one who's supposed to be the bridge builder among other people, and you can just kind of refer and connect, and voila, you move on, and then they take it from there. So we never know. And so people to people, that's so crucial and so basic, right? In fact, all the studies show that the best evangelists are the people in the pews, the people of God. And so by practicing a little bit, it might open opportunities for you to have also the opportunity to be that invitational piece for someone who is also seeking, better life or better understanding of life. And we know, where that comes from. And so, in other words, you and I are like hungry people mingling with other hungry people. It just happened that we know where the bread of life is. We're thirsty people mingling with other thirsty people. It just happened that we have received the good news. We know where the living water is. So what an opportunity for us then, not to go and preach and try to, impose something, but rather more listen, kind of check a little bit where people are at and then see in what ways you could be that person that could bring good news to others. If we open it up a little bit even further, now we're talking about community, not just individuals, the Camp Hill, or beyond, the regional area. What seems to be unique about this place? What are some of the gifts and assets that we have in the community? What do we have around that we can consider, a gift for us to be able to continue our work here at Trinity and beyond, or the congregation that you're from? There's a lot of things going on out there. And so a gift that is being put to use, it becomes an asset. So what are the assets in the community? A park is a gift. A library is a gift. A school is a gift. A restaurant is a gift. The fire station is a gift. Traffic lights are a gift. Although the red light in my country is only a suggestion, But so what are the gifts? What are the assets in the community? What's out there that we maybe never really considered that as assets that is ours, that's to use. So it's amazing if you were to kind of go a little bit deeper and trying to discover the abundance we already have in our midst that we can tap into. There are many places that nobody uses to meet and just have a little intimate gathering, and they're there. If we really look, they're all over the place. So I always say that, we're gifted with so many things, and it's just how you look at them. Some things could be, seen as I don't like these things here. They're not like I used to, have. But what we have in front of us, they're probably things we could utilize to be able to help us in our work of connecting with people and gathering people or blessing people or sharing with people on that. So some of the ideas could come from many sources, and I put on the screen a few colleagues that have over the years developed some excellent ways in which we can go and explore a little bit deeper the things that are in our community. Especially Jody Kretzmann, a good friend for many, many years, who was a missionary and the parents missionaries in different parts of the world. And they began to find out that many villages around the world, the places you think they have nothing, the places we think, how can you live here? There's nothing here. The people who live there, they have over the years discovered the gifts and the assets that they have, and they live with those means together. So up in the hills and the mountains of the Andes of Peru, you will find villages of people who say, I have chickens, you have pigs. All right, let's make a deal. I have lettuce, you have potatoes. Let's make a deal. And so everybody finds ways in which their gifts could then begin to connect to the others, and then you put them together, you map out, all of a sudden that there is really giftedness even there. That's why when you visit another country in the world and you come back and you say, you won't believe these people, they just gave us everything. They had nothing and they gave us everything. Yes and no. Yes, they gave you everything, but no, you're wrong. They are gifted too. And if we look at that from that perspective of giftedness, then we are so rich, everywhere in the world. And so that comes to us from other parts of the world to help us to put a new lenses and to look at the community and say that, my goodness, we are so gifted here. How can we use those gifts to propel us or to help us in doing the work that God has for us as God's people? So in many ways, when we mingle with others in the community, we can begin to ask those questions. Who is not here? Who's being left out in our community? What is the vision of our community? And is that vision connected in some way to the vision of God for this place? God that desires the well-being of all people. In what ways can we begin to move in that direction using the gifts that we have here and all those people who would like to come along as a community and trying to be a community that embraces, that loves, that cares for one another and all that. So that's a way of beginning to mingle with each other when we begin to kind of put our lenses as detectives of opportunities that God gives for us. Because most communities always go one way or the other. They say, the cup is half full, which is scarcity. We can't do anything. We don't have anything, or we're dependent on just, money from outside. And so many times we think that more programs are the answer to take care of all these problems we have. But other people look at the other way, which is the cup half full. And so there's that other perspective that really people to people, many things could be answered and cared for when we have those connections and relationships and people begin to see, I am here with you and I'm here for you. We might not have this or that, but we're together and we're going to walk together. And many things that are resolved, maybe not the way we expect, but in different ways in which a community moves together into the future. So I recommend to you to get a dialogue in the community between the community assets that we all have, like I mentioned to you, either businesses, schools, libraries, hospitals, parks, associations, book clubs, social groups, people, elderly, the youth, income artists, the marginalized in our community, gifts that are at our disposal to mingle with, learn, get acquainted with, and then embrace, because that's part of us. This is what is about us. Because if you only focus on the needs in the community, we can be easily overwhelmed. And you know what I'm talking about. So we have so many complex issues in communities. And so we cannot do it all. We cannot tackle it all. But my counsel is that we go first to the assets in the community and then begin to look at what we already have and then address some of the needs in the community with the things that we already have. That way we might be able to target our ministry, our service, our accompaniment with people with what we already have. In other words, being chefs with the things we already have and cook something with what we have. And so that is an asset view as detectives of the things that we can do. So I would like for you to take a few minutes in your tables. What do you know about Camp Hill or the town you're from? What are some of those assets? What are some of those gifts that you have in the community? And tonight you say, you know what? I have never seen that particular aspect of our community as a gift, as an asset. I think I'm going to go and investigate that a little bit more and see maybe I can be that bridge to that particular part of our community and see in what ways I can be that person as a bridge between our ministry and that place. So could you find one or two places in the community you think that are important that we ought to be connected with? So go on your tables. Okay. Thank you very much for sharing. I know we're just getting started on that, but I think you get the idea. That I hope that some of you could pursue some of that. But on Monday mornings, my wife and I that have our granddaughter, And so we go to the library because the storytelling time over there is just amazing. But I never knew, so you discover as you go, right? And sometimes life creates those openings. So that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes rediscovering all the beautiful things going on already, or the tough things, and how can we then relate and utilize those things. Many of the new churches that we have in the ELCA are now using church buildings. A lot of the people are disenchanted with organized religion, and they will go to a place to talk about divinity, but not necessarily within a sanctuary. That might happen later, or maybe not. We don't know. But at least at this time, we're finding all kinds of places in which people could gather naturally. And then as they do things and organize things that they like to do together, the conversation of divinity always comes in, eventually comes in. One of the greatest things happening nowadays is that in many of the social services that we do as people of God, and we're so generous with food and clothing and things like that, people are asking us back now. That didn't happen before. In many times, people were thankful for the food and the clothing, and the people are saying, my goodness, when it comes to food and clothing, nobody gives us better things than the Lutherans. And you say, oh, yeah. Well, I say, yeah, but you look like a church. You smell like a church. You move like a church. Are you a church? Oh, yeah, we're Lutherans. What? We're Lutheran. So I say, we're Lutheran. Oh, okay, so you're a church. Then when are we going to invite us? When are you going to invite us to church? It's been years that we get your food and the clothing. Thank you, we need it. But we also need this other thing that you got. And when are you going to invite us? So that's what's happening. It's kind of almost like we are being evangelized by the people on the margins in society. We got lots of groups are gathering. I'll tell you one a little later as we close today. So that's the idea, to try to mingle around to find those places. So many, many people throughout the world, they kind of find each other in community, trying to exchange things that they have, and in that way, look into action together to be able to live, as the better way that they can together on that. And this quote is not just a few years ago, right? So there's nothing new under the sun on that. So power analysis, very briefly. What we're talking here is every community has a nerve. You touch the nerve and boo, everything goes out of it. Like when you go to the doctor, right? They put that on the knee. Same thing. How is life lived in this place? Could be a family, could be a organization, could be a church, could be a whole city. Who calls the shots here? How are decisions made here? And that's another, curiosity thing. That's another way of looking at life and see how are things decided, And when decisions are made, who gets the best deals and who's left out? That type of thing. So because of time, I want to go straight into trying to analyze that quickly and give you an example of that in the Bible. In the analysis of power or control, if you will, it's always good to see, what is the issue that seems to be going on here? Who are those most affected by this issue? And are their voices being heard? Who or what entity has the ultimate power to fix this problem, to solve it? And what is their value? What is it that they're interested the most? Who has the strongest influence in this decision maker so that they can help us? And how can you put together those with great influence and those who are mostly affected? And what is the role of the church in all of this? Is there a role in the church for the issues that we face in society? So that's what I'm talking about, analyzing those situations. So this is a little deeper, a little different, but it's still being detectives of how God could be at work in a place. So we're going to practice with the book of Acts, chapter 6, verses 1 to 6, is the story of the Greek widows. And we're going to read it briefly. It is so important because what these disciples learned, especially Peter, what Peter learned with this story really helped him 9 chapters later on Acts 15 and 16, where there was the first church-wide assembly of the early church. And the issue of the first assembly was not the budget, What was the question? It's inclusivity. Are we going to be a church that will be welcoming and inclusive of all people? That was the issue. So what happened in chapter 6 really helped so that the church would not be building walls of division, but rather turn them horizontal to be tables that we can come together as a community to plan a future together. So that's kind of what was at stake in chapter 6. So we're going to read it. Okay, follow me. Now in these days, when the disciples were increasing in number, a complaint by the Hellenists arose against the Hebrews because their widows were being neglected in the daily distribution. And the 12 summoned the full number of the disciples and said, "It is not right that we should give up preaching the word of God to serve tables. Therefore, pick out from among you 7 men," that was 7 men, "of good repute, full of the Spirit and of wisdom, whom we will appoint to this duty. And we will devote ourselves to prayer and to the ministry of the word." And they chose Stephen, full of faith and the Holy Spirit, Philip, Prochorus, Nicanor, Timon, Parmenas, and Nicolaus, a proselyte of Antioch. That's it. So I'm going to go back because the main thing is on the first part. What is the issue? The issue is a group of widows were being left out in the distribution of the goods. Remember, Acts chapter 2, at the very end, it says 3,000 people, one day say yes to Jesus, the preaching of Peter. And you know what the outcome of this new life is? They brought everything from their home and put it at the feet of the disciples so that nobody would go hungry, so that nobody would experience poverty. The church was right there. And so all the stuff, so Peter and John, were there. Wow, this is amazing. So then they began to give it away to people in need. There are 3 groups of people in the Bible, all the way from the beginning, that God said we should help no matter what, no questions asked, no complaints. You must help this type of people, period. Who are they? Orphans, widows, and the foreigners, the immigrants among you. Right there. No questions asked. That's it. And so if you don't take care of these 3, you're being disobedient to God. So in this case, the church said, okay, let's take care of the orphans. Let's take care of the immigrants. Now it's time for the widows. Okay, line up. So probably every Wednesday afternoon, it was a widow's days. And so Peter and John were there with all the goodies. And then the line of widows. And what happened is when they're way out, I can guarantee you, one of the Greek widows noticed that across the street, there was a Jewish widow carrying 4 bags of goodies, barely make it home, and she had just a couple of them. I said, maybe there was something special, their anniversary, they had a birthday, or maybe, Peter was nice to her, that's great. But the next day, same thing. And what happens when you're marginalized? You find other people like you. And so they went and talked to other Greek widows, probably in Greek. Hey, did you notice this? And so they figure it out. So how did they fix this problem? You don't go to Peter and John. Oh my goodness, no. That's a power issue. They can put you an illustration in the next sermon. Or they can just say, you're out of this community. It is that powerful. Peter and John, they're powerful. How did they fix it? It's like many things when you're marginalized in anything, both could be all kinds of people, any type of marginalization and oppression. People come together, try to figure something out and organize. So look at the word on the 3rd line, the Hellenists. The widows found out this, about the Hellenists. Who were the Hellenists? Hellenists were Jewish people, but they love Greek culture. They're the ones who took the cruise to Greece, And then they went and came back with T-shirts, from Greece and souvenirs and all that. And every time they got excited, they say, Oppa, all that stuff like that. They were the Hellenists, It's like many people who go to Mexico for a week and they come as experts, of Mexico. But that's okay. That's okay. That's why we have Taco Bell, So anyway, but so the widows talk to the Hellenists. They say, we need your help, And so they wine and dine them, and so the Hellenists are the ones who went to Peter and John because they were the in crowd, grabbing by the neck. It's right there in between the lines. How dare you, discriminate, here to the Greek widows. Shame on you, Peter and John, which other people could not do. But because the Bible was not written by women or widows, a boy wrote this. So they make Peter and John the heroes of the story. I'm being quiet on purpose. Think about that. Okay? Because this is a flagrant, discriminating act. And they come out as the heroes. Because it says there that, it is not right for us, to get dirty anymore. We're just going to preach and teach, get other people. In fact, why don't you get some Greek men, to do this dirty work and help them? And that's why you have these names. All these names, they're Greek names. So, in other words, when you begin to analyze the situation, say, whoa, yeah. Because I always heard this passage preached all over the world as a leadership passage, which it is. I mean, they find, lay people, diaconal deacons out there, but really deep. So anyway, what's going on in the city, institution? This is another way. I'm not recommending for everybody, but if you're interested, this is one way to pursue, to be a detective. How can we be people who break chains of oppression? How can we be people who dare to stand up to issues of marginalization in our communities? That's another way of being a detective. And so last but not least, it's a collective impact. That is, who else is out there that is doing some things that we're also doing? They might be Lutherans, or it might be another church, could be another organization. And how can we share our experiences? Are there some things we can do together, especially in impacting communities? We have many churches who find themselves as community has changed, and all of a sudden, everybody's an artist in the community. Well, why don't we do that and begin to engage artists, theaters, schools, businesses? Is there any way that we can have a mutual relationship and strengthen the connections and the web of people who together want to serve this community for the long haul? And so that's the idea. It's kind of like people are beginning to enter more and more into a community impact, so that many churches, institutions together begin to do that. It's a lot of work, a lot of building relationships and trust among people, but it is a way that for the long haul, we can be rooted in the community, have partners, alliances, connections, to be able to be that people of God, that over time, people begin to say, that church really cares. I might not go there, but I know what's about, and people tell people. And so that's how we can be strongly connected in the community. One of the things that we're learning lately here is that as people of God, a community in mission, we're invited to be restoring community, kind of interweaving again relationships of people, trying to be more listeners, serving, learning, accompanying people. And then out of that, windows of opportunity will open up in which people will ask us the question. You're a church, you look like a church, are you a church? And then we have the opportunity, yes, we are. And this is who we are. And I hope we can partner into the future. So God told the people of God this through the prophet Jeremiah long, long ago. The people of God were in exile. They were not even, in their own home. They were probably undocumented somewhere. And God says to the people, your job is to seek the well-being of the community around you. And not only that, your job is to pray on their behalf, because your well-being is connected to the well-being of the community around you. And that's a missional principle. It's almost like, an opportunity. So I hope tonight you hear that, we are crucial in the way God's mission is extended, it is understood, brought to clarity to many people around us, if we could just put our lenses and become detectives of the activity of God in the world, and seeing what ways you and I together, we can be useful vessels to be able to be in mission, in ministry, wherever we are. It's exactly 7:30, is my understanding. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor Ruben. You've certainly given us much food for thought, and we hope that we all continue to think about all these challenges. And before you disappear, are there any questions that any of you would like to ask Pastor Ruben? Sue.
Yes, I know that. That's why I think if you map out the things you already are involved, I would begin there. So it's not to create new things necessarily. It's the things you're already involved. Example, you have an after-school program. I mean, whether you have it or not, but I'm just giving an example. Okay, the question would be, who else in Camp Hill is involved in that? So then we go and see, okay, who else, and then begin to make connections and see if there are some things that we can help each other. That's what I'm talking about. Begin to build alliances and strengthen the grip with the help of one another to serve our children better. And then now, not only that, but maybe even also their families. And then here we go. So it just takes us that way. So slow, surely building relationships. This is not a fast thing. This is a really careful, strategizing together, all that. So yes, thank you for that question because it helps clarify that we're not talking about something way out in there, but just beginning with the things we already do. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things that has impressed me the other way with Lutherans is that they turn white with fear when you say anything about evangelism. But I think you heard a lot tonight about a way to go about that. So think about that.
Yeah, let me just tell you another example of that briefly would be in Washington, D.C., Pastor Rosario Cruz is a pastor in Silver Spring there. And so there was a girl that was being bullied in school. And the mom didn't know what to do and all that. And so there's a lot of kids and youth coming to church together and all that. So the mom desperately was trying to get some help. And so Pastor Rosemary sat down with this girl and found out that, it's being bullied and all that, but, she said, I'm nobody, I don't want to live, I have nothing to offer and all that. But just slowly, carefully building a relationship, several conversations here and there, Pastor Rosario discovered that this young girl was actually a painter and had a gift for painting. And so then the next question, and do you have friends who like that? Yes, I do. Do you guys get together? No. Well, why don't you get together? And then some of the pictures you see when you get these copies in there, you'll see this young girl bringing 4 other girls to church. And they're painting these beautiful paintings that now they give away to churches. And when they walk in school together, they walk tall because there's this sense that God gave me worth. That's what I'm talking about. Or Violet Little in Philadelphia who took the train and missed her train. I had to wait 6 minutes for the next train. Wanted to go to the restroom and found a line of executive women waiting to go into the restroom. And because she had a collar, she went ahead of all the executives to see what was going on, opened the door of the restroom, and there were 9 homeless women inside the restroom on 30th Street Market train station in Philadelphia. And then the women were cleaning themselves to go out into the snow and the ice. And so that's what was going on. And so then she stands at the door right there watching the women cleansing themselves as fast as they could And this woman here cursing and saying bad words about the people inside, and something triggering her gut. And Pastor Violet told this woman in nice Christian language, "Shut up! Don't you know that these are children of God?" Like that. And so they all said, I'll hold it, and they all left. So when she went back into the bathroom, the women said, "Wow, so you're a pastor, huh?" And said, "Yeah, would you like to be our pastor? Would you like to be our pastor? We don't have a pastor." These are homeless women. And out of that, she couldn't sleep. So she went to her bishop and said, "What do I do?" And the bishop said, "Follow your heart." So she left her call in a suburban church in northern Philadelphia and went back to the train station to find the women and said, "I'm here to be your pastor." We have 200 people that gather for worship in a park, in a train station, on the street. They now went 4 times bigger because they know each other. And so they have put a little table, the Bible, the chalice, and the bread. And they do church right on the street in Philadelphia because these people found each other and they believe that God is right there and the church is right there. And so out of that came a musician that was on the street, and now he's going to school to become a pastor. They found a Presbyterian and Episcopal. Even a young fellow that became a leader has been sent to Paris, France. And in Paris, France, he started a homeless church equal to the one in Philadelphia. The effect is you never know what God can do with just a simple thing. That woman missed her train, but he found her vocation as a leader of God. So those are the things that happen when we detect some things that are going around us. So thanks. I'm sorry for taking too long, but
Thank you again. I hope you remember that we're all detectives, and there's such of God's love around. We just need to keep our eyes open and share it. Can we close with the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you. Good night. See you next week.